This is Leader Time by FedNet, the podcast for daily floor remarks by Senate Majority Leader John Thune and Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. On April 30th, Thune linked the continuing partial shutdown at the Department of Homeland Security to immigration enforcement after a budget resolution providing for funding under reconciliation had passed the House. The following material is protected by copyright.
Mr. President, we are a nation of immigrants, but we're also a nation of laws. That's a common sense statement and one on which Republicans and Democrats should be able to agree. But lately, Democrats have proved that they don't really think we're a nation of laws. In fact, they don't really seem to care whether some of our laws, particularly laws dealing with border security and illegal immigration, get enforced at all. And they're even trying to defund the very agencies that enforce those laws. That's right, Mr. President. No funding for immigration and customs enforcement. No funding for Border Patrol. This is what passes for a reasonable proposal in the Democrat Party today. Democrats apparently think it's reasonable to have nobody patrolling the southern border. Think it's reasonable to let criminal illegal immigrants continue living freely in our country. If that's the Democrats' position, Mr. President, I guess it just proves how far to the left their party has moved. Mr. President, while our Democrat colleagues try to appeal to the defund the police crowd, Republicans are doing our job. Last week, Senate Republicans moved forward to begin a process that will allow us to fund Border Patrol and immigration and customs enforcement without Democrats. And in order to prevent Democrats from trying to defund law enforcement again in September, we're going to fund these agencies for the next 3 years. We're going to give these law enforcement officers certainty that they won't be used as political pawns by Democrats and that they will be able to do the job that they were hired to do. And that's an important job, Mr. President. Protecting our borders and deporting criminal illegal aliens are essential components of our country's security. It's unfortunate that Democrats don't agree. Last week, the Democrat leader said that Border Patrol and ICE are two agencies that, and I quote, nobody respects in this country, end quote. Nobody respects Border Patrol and ICE. That's what he said. Apparently, the fact that there are men and women putting their lives on the line to ensure dangerous individuals don't enter our country does not merit respect from Senate Democrats. And I guess it's no surprise. After all, Democrats have a history of failing to respect our immigration laws. The Biden administration clearly did not believe in enforcing our immigration laws. And the result was 4 years of record-breaking illegal immigration on President Biden's watch. Millions were coming here illegally every single year. And a whole lot of those people were waved through and allowed to take up residence in this country. And long before the Biden border crisis, Democrat-led cities and states were implementing sanctuary city policies that prevented their law enforcement agencies from working with federal law enforcement to get criminal illegal immigrants off our streets. Mr. President, these misguided policies have had tragic consequences. Laken Riley is just one example. For 2 years, Laken was murdered while out on a run on the campus of the University of Georgia. Her killer was an illegal immigrant who should never have had the opportunity to get near her. He entered the country illegally during the Biden administration, was released into the interior, and was subsequently arrested in New York City, and later issued a citation for shoplifting in Georgia a few short months before Laken's murder. After being arrested in New York City, he was released before Immigration and Customs Enforcement could issue a detainer, a request that police hold an individual so that he can be taken into immigration custody. And so this individual, here in the United States illegally, and subsequently involved in 2 crimes, was free on the University of Georgia campus when Laken Riley went running in February of 2024. Mr. President, a man who had illegally entered our country and then committed not 1 but 2 crimes in our country should not have been free on our streets. But he was. because of open border and sanctuary policies implemented by Democrats. The Democrats haven't learned their lesson. Today, Democrats are advocating for defunding border security and immigration enforcement. They're advocating for a return to the policies that led to tragedies like the murder of Laken Riley. Policies that led to a crisis at the southern border and that made America and Americans less safe. Mr. President, thanks to Democrats, we've seen what happens when our immigration laws aren't enforced. No one wants to go back to that. No one, I guess, but Democrats. We're not about to let that happen. Republicans will continue to work to ensure that our borders are secure and that dangerous criminals are not on our streets.
Schumer continued his weeks-long critique of the Iran war and inflation at home.
Mr. President, this morning, America received another gut punch about the rising costs that they have to pay, because we learned that inflation rose to 3.5% in March, the highest rate in almost 3 years. You know what that means? The 3.5% increase in inflation means Americans are paying more and more and more. And it means at a time of rising costs that people hate, Donald Trump's making things worse, not better. The historic blunder in Iran is compounding the increase in prices. There was increase in prices before this bad war that Trump never should have called to begin with. The prices were going up for groceries. Prices were going up for electric rates. Prices were going up for health care. Prices were going up for child care. Prices were going up because of tariffs. And then the war, gasoline over $4 a gallon, higher than it's been. Price of crude oil, higher than it has been in a very long time, all because of a war where Trump seems to have no direction, no aim, no purpose, no conclusion. Let me repeat, inflation rose 3.5%. Higher costs on everything, higher costs on groceries, on household essentials, on everything Americans need just to get by. And when oil costs go up, so does fertilizer, so does food, so does anything that travels by truck or train. So these costs are hurting everybody, and it's getting worse. Donald Trump, do you see what the inflation number means? Costs are getting worse. Affordability is getting tougher. People are paying more, all because of you, Donald Trump. Trump said he'd bring costs down on day one. Well, here we're 15 months after Trump took office. Costs are skyrocketing so fast, they're breaking records. And as to the war, which is compounding the increases on inflation, Trump has no plan to show us how to get out of this quagmire, just as he had no plan when he got us into this mess. After weeks of leaving Congress in the dark about the state of Trump's disastrous war, Hegseth came to the Capitol to testify yesterday. What he said was disgraceful. Here's what he said. The biggest challenge, the biggest adversary we face at this point are the reckless, feckless, and defeatist words of congressional Democrats and some Republicans. Give me a break. You caused the war, and your boss, Donald Trump. You got into this mess. You can't get us out of this mess, and so you try to point a finger. People don't buy that. Maybe a few MAGA listeners of Fox News do, but not anybody else. So I say to Hegseth, take a look in the mirror. Our greatest challenge in Iran is Donald Trump and Secretary Hegseth, and Americans know it. The war is unpopular. They blame Trump for it, of course. The greatest obstacle to peace is the incompetence of the Secretary of Defense and of the President of the United States. Hegseth said the war has been an astounding victory and the American people support it. Your intel is off, Secretary Hegseth. Fewer than 1 in 4 Americans think this war has been worthwhile. Let me repeat that to you. Fewer than 1 in 4 Americans think this war has been worthwhile. And a huge number of Republicans and independents, not just Democrats, agree. So stop being partisan, stop pointing fingers, roll up your sleeves, and come to an end to this mess, this quagmire. As for an astounding victory, of course our service members performed impressively. They always do. But they're saddled with the bad decision-making of this president and his cabinet. 13 service members have been killed. American service members have been killed. 400 have been wounded, nearly 400. And the Pentagon says it's spent at least $25 billion on this war so far. Meanwhile, Americans' families are hurting every time they go to the gas station or grocery store, all for no strategic gain. And what Pete Hegseth thinks is, and is that what Pete Hegseth thinks is an astounding victory? You're going to take out a brass band and salute that inflation is up 3.5%? Salute that the Strait of Hormuz is still closed? Salute that we still haven't found the nuclear armaments, the nuclear facilities and potential weaponry that Iran has? None of that has been advanced. So this is not an astounding victory. It's past time that Senate Republicans join Democrats on our War Powers resolution. We forced votes on our resolution 5 times. We're going to force it a 6th time today, and it's going to come back week after week. Republican senators, you can't escape this. You are culpable. You're preventing an end to this war, which Americans want to see the end to the war. Tomorrow marks 60 days since Donald Trump officially notified Congress about his attack on Iran. After we cross that 60-day threshold, there can be no more doubts that he's violating the War Powers Act. Republicans are out of hollow excuses. They're out of hiding places. End this war, Republicans. Bring our troops home. Stop bleeding taxpayer dry. Support our War Powers resolution. On the NOMS package, this is another incredible thing. The new lows that this administration goes to. Every day there's a newer one. It's amazing. It's no surprise that Donald Trump's popularity ratings are in the mid-30s. He does such profoundly crazy things, bad things, almost evil things. To pick somebody for the federal court who was there on January 6th, that's evil. That's not just supporting insurrection, that's elevating insurrection. But that's what's happening here. Republicans continue to force through some of the shadiest, most unqualified nominees I've ever seen. The loyalists, the Trump loyalists in today's package are awful. David Smith, Trump's pick for the District Court of Wyoming, has no criminal or federal court experience, opposes same-sex marriage, supports teaching creationism in the public schools. But that's not the number one thing against him. Smith was present at the Capitol on January 6th, and now Trump wants him to uphold law and order. What hypocrisy, what fakery. How disgusting. Donald Trump, you reach a new low every day, a new low every day. To make those who tried to take over the Capitol and create an insurrection heroes and elevate them to judgeships, that's why you're so unpopular, Donald Trump. You're in this bubble, and you got too many people in this chamber who shrug their shoulders, go along, and support you. Another nominee, Philip Williams, the nominee for the Northern District of Alabama, has a dearth of criminal and federal court experience and compared the prosecution of the January 6th insurrectionists to the Salem witch trials. Salem witch trials. He also called abortion, quote, nothing more than industrialized slaughter. For the Middle District of North Carolina, Trump nominated Dan Bishop, Russell Vought's former top lieutenant at the OMB. He helped orchestrate the Trump administration's crusade to cut crucial services to the American people. People hated Vought. They hated what he has done. And yet here we're elevating one of the chief henchmen of Russell Vought. Bishop also said he disagreed with the Obergefell and versus Hodges decision legalizing same-sex marriage. He supported a national abortion ban on multiple occasions as a legislator. And finally, I want to say a word about Richard Kloster, nominated to serve as on the Surface Transportation Board. Kloster has shown a troubling lack of basic understanding of what the board does. He is, however, a diehard MAGA loyalist, good enough in Trump's eyes. Kloster's nomination comes as the Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern is set to refile today their $85 billion merger with the Surface Transportation Board. If Kloster helps clear the deal, it'll mean higher costs for the American people. Hear that, Americans? Trump's putting people on the board who are so obeisant to industry that he's going to raise your costs. The more the railroads merge, the less competition, the more the consumer, the more the American people pay. And if Kloster's on the board, we're kidding ourselves to think he'd side with workers or consumers over the interests of railroad-backed oligarchs. I could go on, but Americans get the picture. Trump wants to stack the courts and his administration with MAGA loyalists who are hell-bent on threatening our freedoms, our economy, our democracy. And Republicans, even worse, don't even want to put each of these up for a vote. They can lump them all together because they're embarrassed to vote for some of these people, I'm sure of that. On DHS, in a very rare moment, I'm asking Republicans to actually listen to Donald Trump on a particular issue. He's not right very much. He's wrong almost all the time. But on this issue, House Republicans should do what he says: pass the Senate's DHS bill. 2 days ago, Trump OMB issued a memorandum that basically admitted what Democrats have been saying all along. It's because of House Republicans that the Secret Service, FEMA, Coast Guard, TSA, CISA remain unfunded. 35 days since the Senate unanimously passed DHS funding. Every single Democrat supported it, not once but twice. Democrats are not the holdup. And frankly, in this case, Senate Republicans are not the holdup. Speaker Johnson and radical House Republicans are the holdup, and everyone knows it. Even the White House knows it, so they said something yesterday. Republicans, stop dithering, get your act together, pass this legislation today before you leave for a week and send it to the president's desk so he can sign it tonight.
This program is copyrighted by Federal Network, Incorporated, and provided only for informational and educational purposes. Unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or use of this episode without express written permission from FedNet is prohibited. Thanks for listening to this FedNet podcast.